Hey, it's Isabel, and today I want to share with you our plans and our thoughts for weed management because that is a super crucial part of any successful garden or landscape. This doesn't apply really to indoor gardens, but we are going to be sharing some fun indoor gardening tips soon, so stay tuned. First thing I thought of was, do I have a weed management plan? And do you have a weed management plan? So I personally last year did not have a weed management plan. We have a few areas in our yard that have weeds pretty regularly, and the same kinds that kind of pop up year after year. And other than that, everything else is pretty good, pretty clean as far as like weeds go. When we first moved in, there was only dandelions and thistles, and how they would have been my mom, so she could probably tell the story a little bit better, but it would have been 2015, and for the first 2 years that we lived here before the garden was in place, she hired a lawn service to get that under control. We picked a lot of dandelions before she did that, and then afterwards to get the thistles and anything else that was in the lawn. That consistency of a program really did help keep away the weeds, and now we can walk around the lawn or walk around any bit of the landscape and just notice a weed has come up and we'll physically take it out. So that has been the plan for a while. We also experimented with, when we put in the front beds, we took out the sod, we dug it out, and then we put down new topsoil, new mulch and stuff, and some of the grass still came through because we didn't get all the roots. So we had been digging that out. We still are digging out some patches, but we also experimented with different areas. We used the cardboard sheet mulching method, which basically we dug a nice edge where we wanted our perennial beds, and then we put down cardboard, and then we put down a couple inches of mulch or topsoil or garden soil, whatever kind of project you're doing. We don't have any inorganic mulch here, or like a stone mulch, but you could totally put the stone mulch on top of the cardboard too, if that's your look. That worked better, I think. She thinks, we all think, and we let it rest for about a season before digging into it. So it basically killed the grass, but let it decompose into the soil. Every once in a while we'll see a weed come through that obviously had a root still, or maybe seeded on top. We're able to just physically take it out when we see it. We tried to do it pretty regularly throughout the season. Like we've talked about before, we try to have a couple hours every day, but usually a couple hours a week in the garden managing those things such as weeds and checking on water and everything. So if you can set aside a couple hours a week to weed in your garden, you will be ahead of the game. It'll be so nice. What was my other question? Yes. Do you manage your weeds with chemicals? Do you manage them with organic chemicals? Do you manage them do you have weed barrier down, or are you willing to go chemical free? In our yard, that's what we do. We want to foster a healthy environment for all of our pollinators, for our beehives that we have here, and we also want to figure out how we can do it without spraying anything. So every once in a while, we have in the past used horticultural vinegar. We've used Epsom salts to like sterilize certain areas, sidewalk cracks and stuff. But overall, we have just observed, managed, cultivated, and tried to hand pick all of our weeds. So, is that something that could work for you? Let us know what your area and what your projects look like so that we can help you out. The other thing is to recognize what kind of weeds you have. So you definitely want to know what their life cycle is, meaning like, what do they do in year one? Are they like a biennial where they grow their leaves first and then the second year they flower? Do they set seed all in 1 year and seed and spread that way? Do they spread by roots? Do they spread by underground stems like rhizomes? This will also help you if you are thinking about some kind of tilling or something, and you can avoid that if you know that you're going to spread and cultivate more weeds. Also identifying noxious or invasive weeds so that you can be empowered to make the right choice to eradicate or begin that journey of eradicating a noxious or invasive species of weed. Basically, we have continually try to learn about what kind of weeds we have. So if you are unsure of what kind of weeds you have, we'd love to help you. We can all search together and figure this out. But we also want to recommend that you have a perspective that's a little bit different when it comes to weeds. I definitely have certain weeds that I am very annoyed with and wish that they didn't exist. But they do, and so I've been on this journey. I'm still on this journey of understanding how they can be potentially useful. There's this book called The Wild Wisdom of Weeds. My mom and I were able to go and watch a talk from Katrina Blair, who wrote it, at Peaceful Valley Farm way back a couple years ago, and it was very interesting because she was talking about how there's these 13 common weeds in the world that are essential for human survival. They're edible. She gives recipes in her book on how to use them, and describes what they look like and everything, so you could identify them too. It is a very positive outlook on weeds, so if you're in the need for something a little bit different, that can be very interesting. And lastly, before I close, that I want to remind you, and this is what we're trying to continually do and get better at, is that we as gardeners are trying to cultivate, trying to observe nature, how it grows, how it changes, how it interacts in our environments, how it interacts with different insects and wildlife, and never going the immediate eradication route, so that we can improve the environments we have, and also educate ourselves and empower ourselves to take control of the garden, but also just learn from the garden. So thank you, and let me know what you think.